Listen, there's a really, really heavy thing happening in Ukraine still, and do we talk about it enough? Yeah, some of you get bored as soon as we start saying Ukraine. You think it's you think it's the Ukraine war. It's a Russian invasion. That's what it is. And we've got to keep on talking about it. The Patriot missile systems that they were promised still haven't been delivered yet. The funding package from the EU finally has been negotiated. Objections from various countries, including Poland, actually, who've taken in millions of refugees. And particularly Hungary. That seems to be out the way now. So the funding package from the EU is in the way. Britain has supported, heavily the Ukraine, but it needs to go on. You cannot take your eyes or your off the ball on this one. Don't do it. Massive missile strikes in Kyiv and Kharkiv and elsewhere. And they're worried that we will become complacent in the West. Energy infrastructure is being targeted. People don't have power, they don't have heat, they don't have running water that they can rely on anyway, and some cities just in complete darkness. Just imagine that. Civilized European nation being treated like this, like Dnipro, 1 million people. It's dangerous. Mustn't take our eyes off it. Let's talk to Cormac Smith, former Strategic Communications Advisor to Ukraine's former Foreign Affairs Minister, Pavlo Klimkin. Cormac, good morning.
Good morning to you, Andrew.
Well, let's talk about Ukraine.
Let's. Look, could I take you up on the point about taking our eyes off this?
Yeah.
And, this is... And I know we have lots of hardships to deal with at home at the moment, and it's understandable that people get that horrible word that we refer to called Ukraine fatigue, and it was an issue when I was out there in 2016 to 2018. But this is a war that is not just about Ukraine. If Putin is not stopped in Ukraine, this will go very bad for all of us. This will have a major destabilizing effect on the world order and the rules-based order that has given us the greatest period of peace and prosperity that the world has ever known for the last 75 years. This is something that Putin and his cronies absolutely hate. And I've got to remind listeners, Putin has been waging a hybrid war, not just on Ukraine, but on all of the West for the last 9 years, since the illegal annexation of Crimea and the invasion of Donbass. We've had the assassinations on British soil in 2018. Or the assassination attempts, rather. We've had cyber attacks. We've had meddling in elections. The list goes on and on. That's right. Going back about 15 years. So this really is not just about Ukraine. And, for my money, if it was about Ukraine, again, I remind people, in 2022, we have genocide being committed on a peaceful European country. What Russia is currently doing, let me read you something. What Russia is currently doing with these attacks on civilian infrastructure is inflicting conditions on the Ukrainian people calculated to bring about physical destruction in part or whole of life. That is one of the 5 tests of genocide. It is arguable, I won't go through all 5, it is arguable that all 5 tests are being met and have been met over the last 10 months.
So it's a war crime
in Ukraine. It is absolutely,
because I've had several texters who are clearly either, I don't know whether they're, there's too many people I hear who are sympathetic in some way or want to find some sort of a justification, be it NATO expansionism or Putin was pushed into it. They want to find justification for this barbarity. I've had people around my own table at home with that sort of attitude. I can barely speak to them because they clearly haven't read and they certainly have not thought.
Yeah, but Andrew, the thing is, Russian disinformation and propaganda and lies have been so powerful and so pervasive. I mean, take for example the straw man of NATO expansion. This was never an issue, as was Ukraine being full of Nazis, which it's the easiest myth to debunk alive. But NATO was never a reason. If NATO was a reason, Putin would have got very, very upset when Finland decided to join NATO earlier on in the summer. Finland has a 1,000-kilometer border with Russia. What Putin did actually was he withdrew forces from the Finnish border during the summer to redeploy them to Ukraine. Putin knows that NATO is never going to attack.
Yeah, go
What he
ahead. Sorry,
fears
go.
is democracy.
I see he cancelled his press conference earlier on this week. He normally treats people to 4 or 5 hours of cleverness and you know, double-edged sort of words that you try to interpret. It's normally complete propaganda anyway, but he cancelled it. That's interesting. He doesn't want to be answerable, does he?
Look, Andrew, it's very significant. It's the first time in 10 years that he has cancelled this annual press conference. There are various reports and speculation about Putin's frame of mind at the moment. It was suggested only a couple of weeks ago that he appeared drunk in public for the first time. We know there was a report that he fell down the stairs and injured himself and was taken in for emergency surgery. Now, the Kremlin did actually, this was only a week ago, the Kremlin did comment on this, but they played it down. They said it was a very, very minor procedure. The truth is there's a lot of speculation, but the war is going very, very bad for Putin. According to the estimates of the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, close on 100,000 Russian soldiers have been killed. Multiply that by 2 or 3 more to get the total number of casualties.
Yeah.
But here's the point. This guy has no compunction with murdering tens of thousands of innocent civilians. We've seen that in Ukraine. We've seen it before in Syria and in Chechnya. He also has no compunction with feeding tens of thousands of his own people into the meat grinder. And there's big, big fears at the moment from the general staff, from Reznikov, the Minister of Defense, and from Zaluzny, the Chief of the General Staff, that Putin is actually preparing for a massive New Year offensive where he may even go for Kyiv again. So this is something we really need to double down on. Could I say one thing, Andrew?
Yeah.
We need the allies in the West. We've given huge support to Ukraine, but it's almost like we've given enough support to keep them in the game, but not to allow them to deliver the knockout blow. It's almost like we are afraid. In fact, I think there is a certain amount of fear of Russia being actually defeated and humiliated. It is my belief, and certainly the belief of my Ukrainian friends, we must take our foot off the brakes and start supplying Ukraine with every heavy and strategic weapon that they need to do the job.
But thank you for making the point. Cormac Smith, thank you very much. 8:48 is the time. Let's have a look at the news. Saturday morning. Lottie Morley.